And back again, this is the one and only Africa Allah. You are now tuned in to Inside the Festival Talk, Season 2 on Carnival Radio by Playmass.today. My host, Dahlia from Bahamas Carnival Guide, is not here. However, you can still visit BahamasCarnivalGuide.com for details about Bahamas Carnival Fête Weekend 2026, June 3rd through 7th in Nassau, Bahamas. In studio, we have one of the producers of Lush and Sausage and Grits, a new calendar addition to the Bahamas Carnival Fête Weekend. Jeezy from Soundboard.
Yes.
So let's get straight into it. First and foremost, I want to thank you for adding, being an addition to the Carnival Fête Weekend in Nassau, Bahamas. Tell us a little bit about the production and the products that you provide during that weekend.
All right, so we came together and we decided as fans of the whole entire weekend that we could put on an event that everybody, including us, enjoys, right? Especially during the festive season. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm a little experienced in traveling, so I felt as though the Bahamas is kind of missing certain type of event. So we started with Lush. Lush is a night cooler cruise that it kicks off the Carnival festivities. Is essentially the week before Bahamas Carnival. So it builds the anticipation of Bahamas Carnival, and it's a cool event. It's at nighttime. It's a really nice, good event. Shots, all these other different things. And the main attraction is Sausages and Grits, which happens on the Bahamas Carnival weekend on Sunday. And that's an all-inclusive, almost like a brunch attire type of event. We try to have special guests, appearances, some performances, some local DJs, different food vendors from all around the Bahamas to give you a good inside look into the cuisine that we have to offer here, as well as the nice drinks. We have some nice partners who help to sponsor, and it's all about just bringing a good, authentic vibe to the Bahamas that has been lacking.
Right. Now, I want to move back to Lush because it's interesting that you do it the weekend prior to Bahamas Carnival that weekend, right? What is the train of thought behind that and why?
Well, I mean, there's a multitude of reasons as to why. I guess one of the main reasons was that there's a void there, right? There used to be Survival Weekend. And I'm not sure if much people are familiar with it, but there used to be Survival Weekend. There used to be a 3-day or 2-day type of weekend. And with the absence of that, we felt as though there could have been a void that was filled, right? And it's all about building anticipation, especially for the people who come down prior to Bahamas Carnival. Because, you know, some people who travel for 2 weeks, some people travel for 1 week. So it's all about providing some festivity while they're here in the Bahamas.
So your train of thought is more so catering to the international clientele, or is this a local market product?
It is all of the above. I don't plan on catering to one or the other. It's more so for everybody.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Right.
The Lush product, now you said it's a night cooler fat. How do you prepare for those that are traveling that may not be able to access a cooler, or, well, I mean, may not even know that this is a cooler option?
Well, it is advertised as a cooler. You have the drinks are on sale as well. And well, it's always good to get an understanding of what event you even go into to begin with. You know, so it covers all avenues, but the main attraction of it is that it's a cool event. So once you spend your one-time fee ticket, right? You provide your own drinks. That's really what it's all about. We provide the venue, and the vibes, the ambiance, and you provide what you're drinking. And if you don't have it, we also have the ability for you to come and purchase whatever drink you want.
All right, that is awesome, especially for people that are flying in on that particular day and may not be able to go to the bar prior to.
Correct.
One of my favorite events, and I'm so sad that I was unable to attend in 2025, is Sausage and Grits. From the very beginning, the inception of it, the name itself is so appealing that even if you have no knowledge of what's going on, the name will make you want to go. Similar to like the Citrus or Breakfast and Soca, right? Like just along makes you think, hey, I want to check this out. So Sausage and Grits, I was able to attend the first one, and I thought that it was a wonderful concept. Unfortunately, there are multiple events happening on the Sunday. So I went from there to the boat ride and then a third event. Tell me a little bit about the Sausage and Grits experience and your choices in whether moving it or playing with various time sets in order to accommodate your audience.
That's a loaded question, but
I know it's a lot, but let's start off with the first part. Let's address the first part. What was the concept behind Sausage and Grits?
Right. So I have a friend from St. Lucia who has been involved in their carnival process, and she gave me some advice in terms of like how they started their carnivals and how they brought their event to be. And she was a part of one of those events that had like a unique name, you know. And one of the things that we was thinking about was either partnering with a brand that was already established or creating something that could be authentic from us, essentially authentically Bahamian. And we came up with the concept of like Sausages and Grits, you know what I mean? And it's I want to say it's a play on words, right? Because even though it's a dish, it also symbolizes men and women as well, you know, sausages, grits. You know, you could draw the line in between that. But they have an event down there named Wow, Color Me Red, all these different things that kind of highlight their culture. And for us, we didn't have anything that highlighted ours. So I felt as though if we was to promote internationally, it would be a fun kind of way to essentially bring forth almost awareness to the people internationally about how we pronounce things, that we could have a sense of humor behind the name, and if we could bring something authentic to the Bahamians. It's really the idea behind Sausages and Grits, as well as being able to go to all these different events, and they have an all-inclusive event, and we don't in the Bahamas. And for me personally, I don't like the whole purchase $20 for your ticket, go inside the event got ticket booths all over the place, and then after you purchase more tickets, you got to go wait in the line for 45 minutes before you get your drink. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of that, right? So we wanted to eliminate all of that.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I love. Again, I was able to attend the first one. I love the setup. I love the variety of dishes and the drinks that were available on the roster in regards to.
Right, and we get to be bigger and better each time.
Right. Now, it was initially a breakfast party, and I love the concept of a breakfast party.
Right.
And yeah, I love the concept of a breakfast party. And to tell you the truth, like I had no problem waking up at 6 a.m. to go to an 8 a.m. party, right?
Right.
In the market, how does that work?
How does it work?
Yeah, how does it work? Do you feel that a breakfast party will work in the market that you're in,
So
or
no, which is a great question. But I'll tell you this: we started off as trying to market it as a breakfast fete. Now, obviously, it takes time to build something and get people interested as well as used to a particular thing. But naturally, as Bahamians, we're not waking up that time to go have an event and party and stuff like that. Especially where we live in the Bahamas is really hot. It's almost too hot. Um, so it makes sense that we moved the time because when we did the event, we realized that people started to come when we was wrapping up. So we realized that, you know what, let's try and make it a later date and make it a day party. Essentially like how Brainwash is, because Brainwash could start 4 p.m. and then end like 10 to 11 and you have a good time. And it's really catered towards the mature crowd too. And if you're doing it on a Sunday, and if there's no holiday the next following day, at least you have enough time to get home, get yourself, go to work in the morning, if that is what's necessary. But the whole idea behind that is that our culture really don't gravitate towards early morning partying unless it's probably like a regatta or so. You know what I mean?
now? Okay, so this brings me to the point at hand because now we're talking about an international carnival product or an international festival that is recognized around the world. And I'm not talking about Bahamas Carnival itself, but the term and the idea of carnival globally. So those people that are traveling in, like myself, that travels in for the Bahamas, even though I am a Bahamian, because I travel so much for different things, when you say a day party, like I'm expecting, 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. brunch or breakfast where we start the party and we can then continue into the rest of the activities. I understand that the market itself, and again, working in the Bahamas and working with different promoters in the Bahamas, I understand the challenges that we may face. However, this is where you decide as a promoter who is your primary target demographic and who would you get the most bang for your buck from.
Yeah, so to answer that question, ultimately I am pro local, you know what I mean? So essentially, if the international crowd want to come and enjoy an event that we are putting on locally, that's fantastic. Even if you are marketing internationally, that you have a local event that's happening, because more times than none, a lot of the international people want to be involved in something that's cultural and authentically local. They don't want to come from away to have an international product, because what's the whole point of coming to enjoy the Bahamas? When you kind of copying something that's essentially what they're used to. So for me, it's really more so about how the Bahamians don't really have an event. And if the international crowd gravitates towards the local event, then that's fine too. But like I'm saying, it's really more so for me to make sure the Bahamians understand that it's really for them. And it's for everybody, ultimately.
All right, well, that gives it more clarity, it gives it more clarity. Personally, I definitely enjoyed the concept of a breakfast party and was looking forward to seeing that grow. However, I understand the challenges that it might face, that promoters may face, and all of the hidden fees that people don't know about when it comes to producing a product, right?
Yeah.
Now that we've talked about the two products that you produce for the Bahamas Carnival Fete weekend, let's talk about you now being added or being a new addition to the Bahamas Carnival Fete weekend calendar and how that relationship came about.
Well, I mean, I am friends with Keon, right, from Duddy Crew. And he introduced me to one of his closest friends, Dahlia, which is an amazing person. I feel like she has brought selflessness to the product, and eventually she'll see the fruit of her labor, hopefully paid for in the long run. But I guess we all have a common goal to try and build something from scratch, and we realize the diamond that's there and it's being made. But just to answer your question, it came about because Dahlia and I had some conversations, and we felt as though we could help each other as well as help the Bahamas in terms of like bringing forth a nice Fed weekend. I'm also friends with Dante, who does La Vie, and friends with Bravo and Fresh, who do After Mass. So Fresh is one of my DJing buddies, Bravo is one of my DJ buddies and cousin. So it's like, it's really easy when you get to work with people you're familiar with and have somewhat of a camaraderie with. You know what I mean?
Now, do you think that the efforts of the collective prove to be beneficial in the 2025 season? And what are your expectations for 2026 as a part of the actual collective?
I mean, ultimately, I feel as though as a collective, everybody is promoting for themselves as well as promoting for each other, right? But ultimately, you want to put more focus on your own product. So what you do is you put in what you need to put in for the Fed weekend, and you let the people who controlling the Fed weekend advertise how they advertise. I don't think the other people who doing events should also be, how do I put it, put in so much effort into the promotion of the Fed weekend itself, but they supposed to contribute to that, if that makes sense, right? And you let the people who controlling the Fed weekend promotions handle how they want to promote Fed weekend promotions. I don't know if that answers your question, but you probably asked me it again. Let me see if I can answer it better.
It actually sparks a couple more questions. I just like some clarity because, again, similar to a Soca Viva or Carnival, what is the one that they're doing now? The One Link or the Big Bad Weekend in Miami. While there are multiple events happening, everybody knows the big weekend, which is the Soca Viva weekend, and I'll go with that because I'm a little more familiar with those, right?
Right.
But I would think, and from the perspective of being one of the collaborators with the Fed weekend, that was actually one of the things that we used to model the Fed weekend behind. Because Miami has Soca Viva. Soca Viva is now in its 25th year, and every event for Soca Viva is successful because of the collective marketing push. However, each individual product that is managed or produced by an individual promoter or DJ still has its own set or cluster of marketing. So,
correct.
In your opinion, you're saying that you should only give XYZ, or are you saying that it should be similar to these particular weekends, like the Soca Viva and the other ones that we may hear of?
So I don't know exactly the model that's laid out for Soca Viva, but there's a potential that everybody involved with Soca Viva might also have, let's just say, shares or some input in other events, right? So instead of having predominantly one event, they might have hands in predominantly all events. So it might be beneficial where you promote, right, everything, and also your event might be what you had, so you get more of a percentage for that, but you also might have your hands in other ones. But that's not the case for us, right? So the case is essentially other people doing their own individual events, but also coming together for a common goal to promote and help the Bahamas Carnival weekend. It's not that Bahamas Carnival itself is a a group like the weekend, the Fed packages is like a Soca Vibe. I don't know. It's not. I don't think Soca Vibe business model is out of what we have going on. So I don't really think it's the same thing. Or at least personally, I don't know. You would have to let me know how Soca Vibe runs and how their model is, because to me it's not really fair for the people who doing their own individual events that they should promote other people's events, right? As hard as they promoting their events when they don't really have no tie to their events. You know what I mean? The only tie is essentially helping promote the whole weekend as a collective. That makes sense?
That's interesting. I mean, that I understand that perspective, and I respect you for that perspective. Yeah, similar to, again, we don't necessarily know the model for Soca Vival, but we do know that if you're going to Miami, there are a series of events happening in different places that
right.
are apart from the carnival itself. But
what's the weekend package that also has what's the other events, what they call Awkworth and all those other different things? I forget what that weekend.
There's a couple different ones, and I stated one or two. Like they have the Big Bad, which is happening, and that's also a 3-day event.
Correct.
They have a Viva Carnival. That's what it is. Viva Carnival, and that's 5 events.
Right.
And that's from Wednesday to Monday. And I think Betty is a part of that. But
exactly. So I think all of them have parts of like of investments in each other events, even though they're separate events, and you can promote every one event that way because you have an investment in the event too. But that's what I'm saying. That's like the difference between what we have going on right now. Now, granted, we probably can get to that. Who knows? I don't know. Where everyone else invests in everyone else's stuff, and whoever eats, you know, and you can enjoy each other events and stuff like that. Maybe you'll get to something like that. Who knows? But I don't think it's there right now. I think everybody's trying to just build what they can build for now, even though it would be easier if we all work together with certain things, right? But then at the same time, you might not want people to be or have a say in what it is that you're trying to do, collect like creatively. You know what I mean? So there's that.
Where the problem lies, right? That's
right.
Where the problem lies, and that is an opportunity for conversation and growth. So we'll look back at that in 2027 or at the end of 2026 when we recap the weekend and see what worked or didn't work, and how we can improve.
Right, exactly.
Now that we've talked about that, let's talk about Bahamas Carnival, the road experience, and everything that Bahamas Carnival is supposed to be. We are currently we would be in our 11th year with our 9th production, -2 for COVID, right?
Right.
In our 9th year, we are still relatively young. Well, we're young. You know, we might as well say that we're like 3 years old, right? Because we're relearning how to do things. We're renegotiating, we're reimagining, and we're reconstructing what Bahamas Carnival looks like. In that, now that they've moved the Bahamas Carnival to the Labor Day weekend, how do you think that particular weekend contributes to the authenticity of the experience?
I don't know if I'm the right man to even answer that question, to be honest, because I don't know if I voted for it to be on Labor Day, right? I don't know if Whit Monday or Labor Day is the correct course of action. I really did like it when it was in May, personally, but it just didn't have no holidays or anything tied to it, right? So it's much harder to do weekend of festivities when you don't have no holidays attached. So I understand the idea of either Whit Monday or Labor Day. So I don't know if I'm the right man to talk about it, because I don't feel Bahamas Carnival should clash with Regatta. So that's an extra.
That's interesting. See, you are the right person to talk about it, because there are certain portions of the community that feel that the Bahamas Carnival should not clash with Regatta. However, that is still the Labor Day weekend. They have the Labor Day parade in Nassau.
Right.
And
which is another thing that takes away from the event.
Takes away from which event?
From Bahamas Carnival. Because you have Labor Day festivities that's happening, but then you also have Bahamas Carnival festivities that's happening.
I personally don't think so. I think that this year, in visually, and again, I've been documenting Bahamas Carnival since prior to its inception. They were having the conversations about it. We've been talking about, culture versus commerce, 2012. And one of the things that I think that Bahamas Carnival really needed was that authentic cultural injection. And with it being on Labor Day, it's an opportunity from a tourism perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a festival perspective, for us to actually integrate Junkanoo, or the essence of Bahamian culture, into what's going on. Now, again, like you said with the collective, that is a conversation, that is where growth and conversation have to intersect. And because we are so gun-ho with our opinions, our thoughts, and our expectations of what should be, we may not be ready for what can be. However, on the Regatta end, is it that are the people that we're marketing to for Bahamas Carnival the same demographics as the people that attend Regatta?
I mean, that's also a good question, but the answer is yes and no, right? Two things could be true, because you have people who plan for Regatta months and months in. You also have people who plan to take trips to the Bahamas at least 6 months out. So the whole idea is to essentially get some word out there. But regattas is usually like locals really partaking in it. I mean, I'm sure there's some international people that partake in regattas, and for the people who still in Nassau, they get to enjoy Bahamas Carnival. But do you market Bahamas Carnival as strictly or solely international? You know what I mean? Because really and truly, you want the Bahamians to enjoy Bahamas Carnival. And you don't want to make this product all about international people. Ultimately, it's supposed to be a cross and a celebration between international and Bahamas Carnival. So that's where you always run into some trouble here and there with that.
You've opened my eyes, Jeezy. You've opened my eyes. No. The reason I say this is because I've never had the conversation with somebody that opposed it for these particular reasons, nor have I had anybody to clarify their reasoning for, right?
Right.
Because people just say, I think it should be this, and then they don't explain. People are so passionate about their ideas that they don't clarify why. And having this conversation gives me more insight as to how to move strategically to actually accommodate these challenges that we
right.
I do understand that, yes. Of course, it is supposed to be a celebration of Bahamian culture, Bahamian authenticity, and the collaboration of cross-cultural experiences. However,
correct.
As I said before, there are still people in Nassau that cannot attend regattas for other reasons.
Right.
So we may have a sizable portion of people that are not present. I think one of the biggest things that it does is it removes a lot of the artists from the conversation, and that is where I think the downfall is in regards to having it on that particular weekend. because of the regattas, and we know that a majority of the authentic Bahamian artists are participating in the regattas, and they're not going to stop participating in the regattas for Carnival when regatta feeds them every year.
Exactly.
You know, so from a professional entertainment professional, yes, I understand that. But then that goes again to the promoters. How do we make sure that we are highlighting the local talent without jeopardizing their bread and butter?
That's an excellent question, and that needs to be brought to the table with everybody, really and truly. Solely me can't answer that.
Well, here we are inside the festival, and this is where conversation and culture meet, right? This is where we start the conversations, because this conversation can spark more conversation amongst the masses.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely understand. With that clarification of what you said, I definitely understand the challenges and why there would be pushback. From my perspective, being a Bahamian that lives abroad and has lived abroad for over 4 decades.
Yeah.
I would say that for me, I love it that Bahamas Carnival is on the Labor Day, because I now get to participate in the Labor Day Junkanoo Parade. Right. I may not be able to get to the Bahamas for Christmas because essentially I'm an American. I have American family, you know.
Right.
They're not as engulfed in the Bahamian culture as I am. So for me and my family to take a trip during the time that everybody in our family is traveling or going to meet for the holidays, and then the pricing is extremely high at that time. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easier for me to take a cousin's trip or a sister's trip to the Bahamas in June and participate in Junkanoo, or introduce my friends that are looking for something to do in the summer,
right,
to the Bahamas and introduce them to the culture. That was where I looked at it as a benefit. And again, when I said visually, over the course of the last 9 productions, or the last 8 productions, this year visually was the pinnacle when it comes to being on the road, being right there against the ocean, and stopping to hear Junkanoo and watching. Like, people were so in awe at that experience. There were a lot of international people, both artists and just people participating, that really enjoyed that experience, and seeing the Junkanoo and the rushing and all of that stuff, right? Now, when they first brought it, they had tried to marry the two, and I think that it was a forced situation, which I understand the pushback on that. But
right,
having that happen organically, it changed the vibe of it. It gave it more of a native feel.
Right.
Are you against that?
Against which one? Having like the cross?
Yeah, having the cross sectors of the culture.
No, I'm not actually. I feel as though, how do I put it? I love music, right? That's ultimately how I end up DJing to begin with. I love music, and I don't know where I'm gonna go with this, but hopefully I get tie it together, right? But just to understand the evolution of music, right? So you have soca music. Soca music came from what? Calypso, right?
Right.
Nobody is say where Calypso come from. You know what I mean? Where Calypso music come from? That ain't just magically became calypso, right? So just to ask that question, right? You have Bahamian music. What is the advanced form of, or the modernized form of Bahamian music? For me, I always thought Bahamian music could go far. It could be international, but it's missing that international element that can modernize Bahamian music, right? Now I'm starting to see the modernization of Bahamian music, right? Just to give you an example, like the song from Twin Them, which is Grew Up On, right? That is more of the younger generation making rake and scrape music. For me, if you look at Afro beats, right? Where did Amapiano come from? What makes Amapiano Amapiano? It's a log drum. Essentially, it's like African EDM music, right? And that is such a thing where Amapiano went on this big blow up stage type of thing. For me, I don't see that much of a difference between these other different type of music and our music. Why we can't have a gombe drum in the background, a rake and scrape saw, some bass and some melodies, right? And that's essentially an international form of Bahamian music. But I say all that to say, if Bahamian music could get that far, and you could hear Junkanu on the road during certain songs, right? That could be Bahamas Carnival. That's a cross. That's a cross between, I want to say, cultural music, young and old. You could even have Bahamian soca. You could have rake and scrape with a soca type of instrumental, and that is how you cross and celebrate two different cultures while enjoying yourself. Like, just to give you an example, I did a remix of Julian, Exec, Johnny Cake, and Shine, Whip Wap, and I put it on Big Links Rhythm. Big Links Rhythm is a Trinidadian thing, right? The song would have all of Sweetness and Greatest Ben Over and Good Spirit, right? When you listen to Whip Wap on that instrumental, you be like, yo, why does it fit so well? But it's because culturally all our music is similar. So it's very easy, I think, to have a cross celebration of melodic, just a lot of different variations of music. Just to answer your question, yeah. I do think we could have a celebration with every day.
One of the things that I think that Bahamas Carnival had brought to the marketplace, and I have been in Bahamian entertainment since the mid-90s, right? One of the things that I think that Bahamas Carnival has brought to the marketplace is, by being on the calendar, they are now able to travel and tour in that carnival space. So you have artists like Wendy, Bodine, even rake and scrape artists like Johnny Cakes, The Leap, and other people that have been a part of various carnivals. And the more and more that we introduce the Bahamas to those spaces, one of the things that I enjoy about the artists is that when they perform in these other spaces, they always do a rake and scrape cover, right?
Right.
They always do a rake and scrape cover, to the point that now when I attend events, you start to see more Bahamian flags, and that has to do with a lot of other things culturally when it comes to America, right?
Right.
In the early 80s, it was taboo to even let people know that you were from someplace else. It wasn't until the mid 2000s that we started actually wearing our flag. And even when you look for a flag, and I grew up in New York, in Brooklyn, even when you look for a flag, the flag was the wrong color. I never see, they had navy blue and yellow. I don't know who the flag was. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
You're seeing the representation because the artists are now a part of this carnival calendar. And with that, you're seeing more and more Bahamians waving their flags as opposed to their duality, because a lot of people that grow up in the US are Jamaican and Bahamian, Trinidadian and Bahamian, something in Bahamian, right?
Right.
Or they have friends that are in that space and they just gravitate towards those friends. You're seeing more flags, and with more flags, you're getting more representation, to the point that the DJs that are from other places are now playing Bahamian music in their sets without having to flag in the road, on the road.
Yep.
It's become embedded into their stuff, and it's two parts for that. Because they're part of this calendar. They're putting out music. They're putting out music more frequently than before.
Right.
And the older ones, it's about discovery of classics.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we can credit, and that's my observation after having traveled across the U.S. and various countries, participating in Carnival and documenting Bahamian artists, because that's my ultimate thing, is to make sure that we're telling the story of us.
Right.
If we don't tell the story of us, there will be no reference of us for future generations. Like you said, you hear people like Twin Them that are making their version of Rake and Scrape. But there's been people for years going to different places, but nobody has documentation of them in Georgia, in Savannah, in New York City, in Boston, in places like that. Or even in Arkansas, in New Mexico, they have small Bahamian festivals.
Right.
So we don't know.
Even in Canada.
Right. Well, Canada's Canada.
Yep.
So if we're not documenting it and we're not talking about it, it's like it never happened. And that's why conversations like this are important. I said, if we're not documenting it, then it's like it's never happened. That's why conversations like this are important. Now, to bring it all together, tell us a little bit about Sound Brewery and what that's all about.
Oh boy. Oh, this is going very low. Let me see if I can hear you again. Say it one more time for me.
Okay. To bring it all together, tell us a little bit about Sound Brewery and what's that all about.
All right. So it's Sound Bureau, right? Sound Bureau International. What it started off was essentially just a collective of DJs, right? That came together with a sound name. And I want to say the rise is somewhat similar to like Alpha Sounds, where Alpha Sounds, being Trevor, his sound name was Alpha Sounds, right? And as he got bigger and bigger, you tend to do your events after your sound name. So that's the theory and how Sound Bureau come to be. We started off in Canada, right? We was underground in Canada with just some college kids DJing and stuff like that, using virtual DJ and whatnot. And then when we came home, we were just doing a little smaller gigs and stuff like that. And where we got our first, I want to say our first gig with our first exposure was with Hypnotic, when Hypnotic was making that first run. And they took a chance with us with one of the events they had by Jaws Beach. I think it I can't remember what it's named, but that was the first time we came on the scene. And from then we developed a relationship with certain people then. But since then, some of the DJs who was a part of it essentially went their own separate ways. And for me, being the person who was really I would say passionate about my craft, I continued the name and the DJing and stuff like that. and ultimately end up building my name and my brand up. End up networking, end up having relationships. And that's really how Sound Bureau International came to be. Especially, I have a friend as well who's in Canada who reps the name as well. She's a DJ. So that's essentially how it became international. So in the event that she ever throws an event over there, you'll see like Sound Bureau International over there as well. That's really how it came to be.
Okay, that's an interesting origin story. I love that. So essentially, you started in Canada and you relocated to the Bahamas.
Right.
You did the work with Hypnotic Mass Band, which is the mass band with the Bahamas Carnival product.
Right.
Is that when you got your introduction to Bahamas Carnival?
Yeah. Well, I won't say with them as my introduction because I went. I think we played Mass. The first time I played Mass was with Eden. I don't know if you remember Eden, but Eden was it was a subsection of Enigma, and that was our first taste of like Bahamas Carnival or what it could be, right? Which was huge back then, and eventually, as we continued to DJ, your name is get around, someone give you a chance, you want to open up for this person, and then eventually you move from being an opener to a midliner, and then from midliner to headliner, stuff like that. It was just all about building the name and the journey and the skills, right? Because you don't want to just remain the same. You want to be able to advance in your craft, and you want to be able to get the recognition from your peers to be like, you know what? That dude is a good, he bad. That's a bad DJ right there. So for me, I just use the craft as a tool, but I also focus more so on the business and the networking side of things.
Well, I definitely enjoyed having a conversation with you, Jeezy. I think that I look forward to the 2026 promotional calendar year.
Absolutely.
That Sound Bureau International.
Yeah.
I'll just call it Lush and Sausage and Grits, right?
Oh, you can just say SBI. SBI is fine.
SBI. I'm looking forward to seeing what SBI brings to the market, and hopefully this can actually open the conversation in regards to investment, ownership, and percentages in the actual weekend itself.
Right.
I think that you brought up some great points, and it'll be interesting to see how people respond to this conversation. So with that said, let everybody know how they can find out more details and information about SBI events and activities happening Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend, June 3rd through 7th in Nassau, Bahamas.
All right. Well, on our platforms is SBI242. You could follow it on Instagram or Twitter. It's also, if you're looking for me, I'm underscore King Jeezy on Instagram. Stay tuned to Bahamas Carnival Concierge as well for more updates. And you are listening to the one who has a lot of information as well, which is Queen Africa. This was fun. Hopefully we do it again some other time. And Jeezy out.
This has been Inside the Festival Talk Volume 2, Season 2, right here on Carnival Radio by Playmass.today. Don't forget to check out BahamasCarnivalGuide.com. That's BahamasCarnivalGuide.com for all information regarding Bahamas Carnival Fete Weekend.